Hello and welcome back to another windy edition of my science videos. Right now I'm standing in front of the MPI Center across from the U of M. You might wonder, what does this have to do with our grade 10 ecology unit? Well, I'll explain right away, but going back to our physics unit, this is the spot. I did have to come back in November when I hit that deer. Remember, in our physics unit we learned about braking conditions, and obviously I didn't, and I hit that deer, not on purpose. And then we learned about the kinetic energy changes which crumbled my car, causing it to be written off. Well, I had to come here back in November and drop off my keys, and they took it with my car, but was towed to the compound, never to come back again. So that's how this spot connects to me personally with the physics unit. So why am I here again for the ecology unit? Well, this spot by the U of M has now turned into a COVID-19 drive-through test site. I won't put the camera around. Well, I say, well, there's a little garage that they have, and you stay in your car, and they have a sign. I think you're allowed 4 people per household, and you do need to have some ID and make a pre-appointment. But they do have a drive-through test site where you stay in the car, and they come and they do the swab test and test you for COVID-19. So again, what does that have to do with our ecology unit? Well, actually everything. Last week we learned about populations and some factors that affect it, like birth, growth, immigration and emigration. So now this week we're going to look at population growth curves. Now that you know about populations and what affects them and some of the factors, now we're going to look at their growth curves this week. So you're going to plot some data and make your growth curves to learn the different phases: the lag phase, the growth phase, stationary, and then death. And then we're going to learn about the different types, closed and open populations. And really right now the entire world is being driven by population growth curves. If you watch the news at all, every single day they're showing growth curves of the COVID-19 and how it's spreading in our province and in our country and our world. So you've probably never seen as many population growth curves on a daily basis as you do right now during this pandemic. So in our notes, we're learning there's 2 different types of growth curves. There's closed and open. So right now, most of the world is trying to create a closed population. So closed means that there's no immigration or emigration. People can't come in or leave. So that happened right away when they closed the borders to countries, right? So that was the first way to create a closed population. But now they're going even further. In Canada, not only are the borders closed, the province borders are closed, right? They don't want people going from province to province. So we have a closed population in Canada, and then even within our provinces. If you do leave our province and come back, you are required to self-isolate for 14 days. So if you leave your province or your country, you must self-isolate. So like I said, that's one way to create a closed population. They don't want, and no one in the world wants anyone coming into their area if they have COVID-19 to spread it. So like I said, the world is being driven by population growth curves. So this week we're just going to look at them, apply them to ecology, and then next week on Tuesday I will give you a worksheet specifically related to COVID-19 and a growth curve. That phrase, flatten the curve, I'm sure you hear that many times a day. Well, that's significant. That's what's ruling the world right now. Once an area is considered to have flattened the curve and they have the growth rate under control, that's when things are being allowed to reopen. So the fact that Manitoba opened things up last week was because of the growth curve. Worldwide, what's the deciding factor? Our growth curves. Scientists and leaders are looking at population growth curves daily, and then once they feel that the population growth curve has hit the stationary phase, or where it's leveled off and there's not more new cases than ones that are controlled, then they are considering things to be open. So like I said, the world right now is being driven completely by population growth curves. We're also going to learn about carrying capacity. You've heard that word a lot, right? We don't want to exceed the carrying capacity of our health system, so that's tied into growth curves as well. So like I said, this week we're going to learn the basics of open and closed growth curves, and then next week we'll apply that specifically to the COVID-19 growth curves, flatten the curve, all that you'll be hearing in the news daily. So okay, so that's our topic this week, our population growth curves. It is windy also as well, but we're going to learn about wind in our next and final unit when we do the weather unit. But for today we'll focus on our growth curves and population growth curves. Okay, have a good week.